Our justice system requires vindication on one side of the issue or the other. The issue is for the justice system to bring vindication, it must be run by unbiased adjudicators. Because when the leaders themselves are vindictive, the system just appears corrupt. Donald Trump has lost his civil case in New York City. Attorney General Leticia James said from the very beginning, I'm going to get Donald Trump. And now she has in a pretty major way.
Wow.
Almost $500 million is now what Donald Trump owes. The judgment was based on alleging that he used shady business tactics and overvalued his personal assets in order to get preferential treatment from banks and insurance companies. Let's look at this article from The Guardian. It says Donald Trump's penalties in the New York civil fraud case for manipulating the value of his properties to obtain advantageous loan and insurance rates were formally set at more than $454 million on Friday.
Wow.
$454 million. That is an insane amount of money. I know Trump claims he is a billionaire. I don't know. I'm sure I've seen his Vegas hotel. I've seen his New York hotel. I've flown over, near Mar-a-Lago. I've seen that land. I mean, it's believable that he's an actual billionaire. But even if he has $1 or $2 or $10 billion, $500 million in a fine, that is so much money. Let's read a little bit more. The judgment, which includes $354 million in penalties plus $100 million in pre-judgment interest following the 3-month non-jury trial that concluded on the 16th of February, will continue to accrue interest if the former president fails to pay. Trump has two options to meet the state's demand: to pay the amount in full or secure a $35 million bond against his assets, which might include the Fifth Avenue Trump Tower, 40 Wall Street, his Mar-a-Lago estate, or a number of golf courses. In the finalized ruling, Judge Arthur Engoron also ordered Trump's adult sons to both pay quite a bit of money. The former president, who has repeatedly described the prosecution as a witch hunt, denies all wrongdoing. The substantial penalties ordered by Engoron have sparked a new round of acrimonious comments between Trump and the New York Attorney General Leticia James over the case. James told ABC News on Wednesday that she is prepared to seize the former president's assets if he is unable to cover the fine. That is an incredible amount of money. Does Donald Trump have that much money liquid?
No.
No. Does almost anyone have that amount of liquid money?
No.
Is it reasonable to expect someone to be able to pay $500 million up front?
No.
No, of course not. That's absolutely insane. Now, this will be appealed, but the way that this is structured is he can't appeal it until he pays it, or at least pays a significant amount of it in some kind of bond. So it will be interesting to see how this moves forward. Now, let me tell you this. I'm not a tax expert. I'm not a banking expert. And so this, like most things in current politics, is a Rorschach test, right? Those who are really far right see this as the weaponization of the Department of Justice against a former president. It's political interference, all those things. Those on the far left see this as another step with the other 91 counts against him as the protection of our democracy and the system working and nobody being above the law, right? And the truth, like almost everything, is somewhere in the middle. And so we'll have to wait to see how this plays out. I'm sure it will get appealed. Most people, even legal experts who are more left-leaning, feel like this will get turned over on appeal, but he has to come up with an incredible amount of money at the beginning. Now, what I find most interesting and what I actually would like to spend my time talking about today is how the back and forth is going between Attorney General Leticia James and Donald Trump. Now, Donald Trump's side is exactly and specifically what you think it would be.
Wow.
This is a witch hunt. Biden is weaponizing the Department of Justice against me. Everyone has been against me from day one. You might be on the right and absolutely believe that. You might be on the left and roll your eyes at that. That's his take, right? And he's facing 90 other counts in multiple different cases, all things he's going to have to deal with in the run-up to this. My concern is that the justice system, who is supposed to seek justice and vindication, either vindication of the system with their belief that someone has done wrong, or vindication of the individual who is innocent until proven guilty. And when they go through a process and are found innocent, they then are vindicated. Our justice system requires vindication on one side of the issue or the other. the issue is for the justice system to bring vindication, it must be run by unbiased adjudicators. Because when the leaders themselves are vindictive, the system just appears corrupt. And so vindication requires the rooting out of corruption, the adjudication of the facts. And what you need are people who are running this system to be as unbiased as possible and to allow the system to bring vindication. What we have instead is vindictive leaders running the justice system, and whether the actual process works or not is called into question because vindictive leaders just make things look corrupt. We talked about this last week with Fani Willis, who is trying to root out corruption in Donald Trump's Georgia case, but herself seems to be just cloaked with corruption herself. She is obviously vindictive in her language against Donald Trump, and so everyone sees it, and it gives fuel for the people who are on the right to say, obviously, this is a witch hunt, and it really degrades those on the left who say this is about the protection of democracy and rooting out corruption when there's corruption itself. I have seen similar issues with Letitia James. What she has done since Trump was fined is she has taken to social media, and I am reading into this at some level based on her comments, based on her press conferences, based on her tone and tenor when talking about Donald Trump, and is very tongue-in-cheek, going at him very aggressively, and somewhat trolling him through Twitter, which is really interesting to watch. And so this is her official New York State Attorney General Twitter. So this is like a political Twitter account. She says, Donald Trump may have authored the art of the deal, but in reality, he perfected the art of the steal. All right. So pun for the win, right? Now, justice has been served. Trump and the other defendants must pay $463.9 million for their fraud. Donald Trump may have authored the art of the deal, but in reality, he perfected the art of the steal. Pun. So then what she has started doing is on a near daily basis, just tweeting out the amount that he owes. So she started $464,576,230.62. A few days later, she then adds plus $114,553. If you've forgotten, that's because every single day that he doesn't pay, he is charged another $114,553, which is just a brutal tactic because it's like you owe $500 million. And if you can't pay it today, tomorrow, it's going to be 6 figures more expensive. And if you can't pay it this month, then it's going to be 9 figures more expensive. Like it's just kind of like insult to injury at some point, right? So I'm not actually super interested in where you sit on like, he absolutely should pay this. He's the worst businessman. He's shady. Or like, there's no way Mar-a-Lago is only worth $18 million and this is so corrupt. And obviously it's going to get turned over on appeals. What I want to focus on is the justice system itself and what we expect of our leaders in the justice system and what ancient wisdom tells us we should expect when leaders are trying to execute justice. In Romans 12, Paul wrote, live in harmony with one another. Do not be proud. Instead, associate with the humble. Do not be wise in your own estimation. And here's the big one. Do not repay anyone evil for evil. Give careful thought to do what is honorable in everyone's eyes. What great advice. Give careful thought to do what is honorable in everybody's eyes. There is a way to execute justice, I believe, even in our incredibly politically bifurcated world where everyone is just entrenching deeper and deeper into their sides, not really even to look at facts, really not willing to criticize their own person, their own nominee in any reasonable way because it feels like they're a traitor to the cause. So a really, really bad, disgusting kind of political climate that we're in, that there is still a way to give careful thought to what is honorable in everyone's eyes. So if you really believe that Donald Trump has defrauded the state of New York or the city of New York City to the tune of hundreds of millions of dollars, then you allow a judicial process to play out, and you do it as the attorney general with fervor and with conviction, but without vindictiveness. And as soon as you bring vindictiveness into the equation, then you're stealing from the process and bringing to the personal. The process is supposed to vindicate one side or the other. The process is in essence vindictive in that way. It is pushing for vindication. When you become vindictive, you bring your bias into the equation and you make the entire system feel like it is moving in a corrupt direction. The prophet Micah said, he has shown you, O mortal, what is good. God has shown us mortals what is good. And what does the Lord require of you? To act justly and to love mercy and to walk humbly with your God. Can you imagine a world where Attorney General Leticia James genuinely believed that her city had been defrauded by this person, Donald Trump, hundreds of millions of dollars, and she went through the process and she was under conviction, like spiritual, serious conviction, and she was forthright and she was meaningful and she took calculated steps and ended up the same outcome, but on the other side, just gave careful thought to what is honorable in everyone's eyes. Listen, I know we're in an election. I know not everyone is happy with this. It's my job as the Attorney General to look out for my state. I genuinely believe that the state is owed a lot of money. I pity anyone who has to put up this kind of money. I'm sure it is going to affect him in very negative ways, and I hope the best for him, and I look forward to the city of New York being made right. The people who are on the right still are going to call it a witch hunt. But you're not feeding them a constant barrage of information and ammunition to come back against you. I guarantee these tweets will show up in Trump's appeal because they will try their best and might be successful in making the case that they had an attorney general who was against them as a private citizen, and maybe even worse, against them as a political opponent, someone who is ideologically on the other side of the political spectrum, as she is. So if you are living in New York City, Kevin O'Leary, Mr. Wonderful from Shark Tank, he's been all over the news saying this isn't about defending Trump. What I'm saying is, I would be crazy to continue doing business in New York City, not just because of the facts of this case, but if the attorney general will personally attack someone, will vindictively come after me, then I'm just going to take my business somewhere else. If you're a private citizen and you have to worry not just about the attorney general doing a good job, adjudicating in an unbiased fashion the justice of your city or your state, but instead them possibly having a personal vendetta against you, putting it online, that's a real issue for someone who's in leadership of you. Now, she might say, I would never go after just a regular private citizen. I'm only going after him because he's Donald Trump. Well, to say that makes the case of Donald Trump and the people on the right. To say she is actually just against me. And so she's in a catch-22. Either she's willing to go after private citizens, and obviously no one's comfortable with a vindictive leader as their attorney general, or she's only specifically vindictive against Trump, which just completely makes his narrative at least credible that this is a witch hunt. All that to say that this is an unwise course of action. We should act justly and we should love mercy, but we should also walk in humility. And humility is how we win. The way up and the way to success is down, by humbling ourselves, even if it doesn't feel as good and even if we don't get our personal vindication. I really believe our drive for political vindication on both sides of the aisle is steering us away from what is actually best for the country at large. We are just in this situation where we are so entrenched and so divided that we can't have conversations and we can't look at facts. And if the appearance is that we're going to use all the levers of power to go against each other, then when it flips and the other side is in charge, you can expect them to do the exact same. I long for a situation where we could expect more of our political leaders, the leaders of our cities and our states and our country, that they could go guns down, humble themselves, consider what is honorable among all people, to love justice and to love mercy and to walk humbly as if they were actually walking before God. If you enjoyed this clip, make sure you check out the full podcast and subscribe and hit the notification bell to stay up to date with all new content. You can also support the channel at patreon.com/Clayton Tyner. Link is in the description below.